told myself I wasn't going to do these kind of reviews anymore because I have an album and guitar reviews that will actually grow the channel that are just waiting to be done, but here we are, taking a look at this Vangoa pedal board. Why am I doing this review? So, a while back I did a review for a Legato pedal board and it was fine, and I was eventually planning on using it for my sort of new upgraded version of my student board at my music school, and then this offer came in and I thought, yeah, this is kind of the one that I really wanted to check out at the time. So here we are. As always, if you're new to the channel, chapters are down below to help you skip all around that good stuff. We're going to talk about specs, we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and then we'll wrap it all up. Let's get going. Vangoa offers a few different size pedal boards in their lineup, and this is the medium size option. So what do you get for your 140 bucks? For materials, the pedal board is made out of aluminum, and it is light, and it seems pretty freaking sturdy. It's got about enough size for what they claim to be 12 normal size pedals, so depending on how well you can feng shui things on your board, you might be able to fit more. They claim repeatedly throughout the manual and in the ad on Amazon that it is true isolated with the power supply. We'll talk about that in the bad, but for now, that's what they're claiming. This pedal board also has two different gimmicks that are kind of unique for it. The first being that it's got these little legs that snap down, so when you go to put it in the case, the profile is a little bit lower than if it was sort of always permanently put at an angle. So that's kind of cool. The second gimmick is a row of LED lights that light up kind of differently depending how you have it set up. Now, flipping the pedal board over, you can take a look at the power supply and the setup on the underside. First, you do have a power switch to turn things on and off, which is pretty cool. The next thing is with that power supply section. We've got 12 outputs under here. So you've got 6 9-volt with 30 milliamp outputs. You've got 4 9-volt at 500 milliamp outputs. You've got one 12-volt output at 500 milliamps, and then another 18-volt output at 300 milliamps. So you're getting a lot of flexibility with the power supply on the underside of this board. 12 different outputs at all of these different voltage and milliamp settings. There's a load of flexibility there to power pretty much any kind of pedal you're trying to drop on this board. There's also a small mic set on the underside so that you can have the environmental sounds basically interact with those LED lights in the front. You've also got an input and an output jack on it if you want basically your playing to interact with the LED lights. And rounding out everything else that you get with this board, pretty much everything you're going to need to get your pedals attached, connected to the power supply, and the board powered. So that's going to be the wall wart section to plug it into the wall and power that power supply. You've also got all of the connectors to power your pedals, and it comes with pre-cut sections of Velcro, both sides, the hook and loop, and a really nice padded case for the board. So you're getting a lot for your 140 bucks here. Let's move on to the good. The first good is going to be the case that you get to protect your board and obviously more importantly the pedals. The padding here is pretty good. There's a pretty decent amount of padding to protect your stuff. It also seems like a pretty water resistant material. Like, this thing's going to have to get pretty soaked in order to penetrate and get to the pedals. You do have a decent sized compartment on the outside to put stuff in, which is always nice. You know, anytime you're going to a gig, you know, you're gonna need to bring extras of everything, spare cables, all that good stuff. It is possible to do it as a backpack in the back. So it doesn't have to be just held as a, you know, your regular pedal, you know, kind of handle right here. You can wear it as a backpack, which is pretty cool, and it's got a little sort of pouch for the straps to slip into. Yeah, look, the case is pretty well thought out, and it is definitely a step above what I was expecting. On the inside, you've got another spot for stuff and some Velcro straps to kind of hold the board in place. The improved case is actually one of the reasons I'm definitely going to use this for my student pedal board at work, because when we have recitals or something like that, it's definitely way more gig ready than the Legato pedal board was, or the Legato case was. That case had basically no padding and no outside storage. This one does, right? So we got space for our cables in here, space for extras inside. Yes, you can wear it like a backpack. and it seems pretty, like I said, pretty water resistant as well. So the case is definitely gig ready. For positive number 2 is going to be just an overall really nice sense of detail that I wasn't expecting, again, for just a $140 pedal board. So something like the pre-cut pieces of Velcro to the correct length of the board. Obviously, you get a manual and a bunch of languages. That's great. What's even better is a larger, easier to read piece of paper that, again, they didn't have to do to give you kind of your quick setup guide. And last but definitely not least, we've got 3 different lengths of power cables. Again, they did not need to go through the trouble of giving you 3 separate length cables, knowing that you're not going to need all of this extra cable to get your closest pedals to the power supply. So just a really nice attention to detail for putting your board together, especially for, you know, you're not getting involved in cutting the cables and doing custom cables for the power supply part. This is going to make the cable management way neater, way cleaner, and then potentially less prone to failure at a gig. So, I mean, definitely 2 thumbs up. Really nice attention to detail, again, for a board that just costs 140 bucks. And for positive number 3 is going to be, yes, the build quality of the board and more attention to detail on the back of the board. They've got all of the outputs on the power supply clearly labeled, so you don't have to go mess around with the owner's manual to figure out which one is which. They also have little cutouts in the aluminum on the underside of the board so that you can fish your cables directly to the pedals and not have to flip down those legs. You can have the board sit flat on the ground and it won't pinch the power cables as they're running to the different pedals. There is one little negative here, so we'll talk about that later in the negatives. Another positive is going to be the distance between the slats here. It's not so big that you can't use a little mini pedal on it, which is great. That was another problem with the Lakato pedal board. The gaps were really big. You're getting more metal here and less space, which obviously cost the company more to make. So the fact you're getting all of it for 140 bucks, I mean, yeah, that's really a good deal. And the last positive are going to be these little feet that snap down. They are pretty robust. I have a feeling they're going to last a long time without failing. The way they move, they're pretty stiff. It feels like it's all metal components inside. It doesn't feel like just cheap plastic. They're not plastic, they're definitely metal. So I do think you're going to get years of use out of these feet without them breaking. Although again, if they do, you can use the board just sitting flat. It does have a teeny little tilt built in. Obviously your main tilt is going to come from putting that down to be able to access, you know, your pedals on the top row easier. But even if the feet fail, which I don't think they will, but even if they did, yeah, you'd still be able to use the board just sitting flat. And because of those gaps underneath, you're going to be able to run your power cables and other cables there without getting them pinched. Before we get into these negatives, if you're digging the video so far, I would greatly appreciate it if you gave me a like or a sub. All the support goes a long way. I'm slowly clawing my way to 10,000 subs, so I appreciate all of the support and everyone who's subscribed to the channel. Quickly about me, my name is Rob. I'm a Berklee College of Music grad, and I do product reviews like this, guitar reviews, kind of anything music related, some lessons and other stuff like that, and I release my own original music. I have a new full-length album coming that I'm really stoked to get out there. Yes, I do give virtual lessons as well, so if you like the little shreddy bits and you want to learn to shred, my contact info is down below. All right, let's get into these negatives. There's not much to talk about here in the negatives, so I think I'm going to be nitpicking a little, but I gotta put something here. The first negative is I'm very skeptical about this true isolated power supply claims. They make it on the Amazon ad and it's repeatedly through the manuals. I am just a guitar player. I can tell you about how a guitar plays. I can tell you how to write music. I can teach you all that stuff, but I'm not an electrical engineer, so I couldn't and I wouldn't take the thing apart to basically double check and see if they actually are isolated. So if you are someone who is vaguely knowledgeable about this kind of stuff, definitely drop a comment down below and let me know what you think. Why am I so skeptical? It's the price, right? So we're 140 bucks for the entire pedal board. And I use a Chox DC7 and Chox Crux to power my Quad Cortex and my one pedal that I use, my Keeley 4-knob compressor, and that is over $300 as a combination. That's usually kind of ballpark what you're gonna have to spend for actually true isolated. Something like a Voodoo Labs Pedal Supply 3 is gonna cost you $230. Something like the really old Voodoo Labs Power 2, that one's 180 bucks. So I don't understand how they could be offering a 12 output power supply on a $140 pedal board and it be actually isolated. It's really, really small in design. So the only thing that like does something like that is Chox, right? The older design is, you know, like the Voodoo Labs is a big brick. This is really, really small. I just don't see how it could be. So maybe there's like different levels or different ways of isolating it, and maybe this is going like the cheaper route. So yes, it is technically isolated, but not like to the same quality as something like the Chox would be or the Voodoo Lab. But I'm just really skeptical. I think that's it. And like I said, I don't know enough, and I wouldn't want to risk it opening the thing up to try to prove them right or wrong. So, you know, if you know something about this stuff, you know, definitely, again, leave a comment down below. I would appreciate it. That's really kind of -1 to me, is just, I don't believe them. I just don't. You know, at the very least, I will say my personal opinion is I believe them on the different voltage output. I don't believe them that it's true isolated in the way that like we all want something to be true isolated to help guard against noise, basically. Just my opinion. Now, number 2 is going to be those gaps in the aluminum underneath so you can run your cabling. Yes, they're great that they're there, and I don't know if it shows up on the camera necessarily in my B-roll, but they're like staggered. So you get like 2 that are open and then 1 that'll be blocked. It would have been better, in my opinion, just to have 1 straight channel. You could send all your cabling. To me, that would make setting things up, running your cables, zip tying everything a little bit neat and a little bit easier. You're gonna kind of have to like zigzag around the one that isn't, you know, so I don't know. Again, just my opinion. I am really nitpicking. That would have been what I would have preferred, just like a straight channel on either side to run your cabling. And the last negative is going to be the placement of these jacks right here. So you don't need to use these jacks if you don't want to. You could just plug into your pedals like you normally would. This, to me, these LEDs is just a gimmick. It's a fun gimmick. I'm gonna definitely have my, you know, I'm gonna set it up for my students because I think they're gonna like all these lights that light up. But why they're where they are is the problem. To me, I would have much rather had those inputs be on the underside or maybe like on the side than in the front. Obviously, that would have been harder, probably would have driven the price up, so I get why they're up front. But just from like ease of use, the input and output, I don't really like where they are, right? You're gonna have to plug in and then run the cable around anyway, and yeah, I don't know, that seems kind of weird to me. So, just my opinion, I would have liked the jacks somewhere else. So, would I recommend the Vangoa medium-sized pedal board that I got? Without a doubt, yes. The attention to detail is really nice here. The board is really well made. The aluminum casting and how it's all put together, it's perfect as far as cosmetics go. It's perfect as far as function goes. The pedal board case is really well made. You've got all, again, just having like different length power cables. Like I said, it's gonna make your cable management a lot easier. Not going to be all this extra stuff you have to bunch up. The whole package, 140 bucks, 12, you know, whether they're isolated or not, you get 12 power supply, you know, you got the ability to power 12 pedals is what I'm trying to say. 140 bucks, power 12 pedals, aluminum, well-made case, silly gimmick with the LEDs that light up. Yeah, you know, like I said, I think the only thing I don't believe them on is those truly isolated, or at least isolated in the way that we would want them to be. Again, maybe there's some technical way that they are isolated, but I just can't see how they possibly could be isolated the way something like a Chox is, or the way those older Voodoo Lab bigger bricks are. I know the design or the technology is a little different between the two of them. Google it yourself and look it up. I don't remember the difference off the top of my head. Again, I'm a guitar player, not an electrical engineer. So yeah, I just don't see how we could be using the Chox technology to get that small footprint and have them be actually isolated, and this thing only cost 140 bucks for how well the board is with the aluminum. So just my opinion, should you consider it? Hell yeah. I forgot to mention earlier, yes, Vangoa did send the board for me for free, but they didn't pay me, so all my opinions are my own. That's why I'm trying to not do these kind of videos anymore, because my channel's not really big enough for it to make sense money-wise. So anyway, if you like the video, if you like the vibe, I'd appreciate a thumb up. Maybe consider giving the channel a sub. I've got 5 guitar reviews, my new album, and a whole bunch of other product reviews and tests and all sorts of fun stuff coming to the channel. I know I haven't posted in a while. That's what I've been working on. It's all getting pretty close to being done. So thank you again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Woo!